Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles, and welcome to Family Office TV. Today, we're going to cover the multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. Our special guest today, we're very fortunate to have Dr. Harry Kloor. Harry is a successful serial entrepreneur, scientist, technologist, educator, policy advisor, author, and Hollywood filmmaker. His current endeavor is beyond imagination. It has developed a suite of exponential technology solutions that employ AI, AR, and robotics, including machine learning, in a human-computer interface technology to enhance and revolutionize the world's workforce. According to the U.S. Council of Graduate Schools, Dr. Kloor is the only person in world history to earn 2 PhDs at the same time. His degrees are from physics and chemistry in 1994 at Purdue University. In addition, he is a chief science officer at Singularity University and the executive co-founder and CEO of Beyond Imagination, a robotics and AI platform company focused on bringing humanoid robotics to the market rapidly. Harry, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
And actually, really, my title is absolutely not clickbait. It's more than 100% true. This is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, and let's get right to that. We often hear about the challenges that AI could bring to society, and there are concerns. I've covered those, and there'll be topics of future discussions in our podcast. But I think we ignore the utterly massive and very near-term improvements that AI will bring to multiple industries that are often trillion-dollar market segments, basically broadly around consumer, retail, elder care, construction, healthcare, education, manufacturing, and I'm not even listing the full list. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where the world is changing faster than we could ever imagine. And yes, it could be a little scary. We're on a roller coaster. But the opportunity for not only societal enhancements, but investment opportunity for family offices. If you could talk a little bit about those industries and how they'll be impacted by AI and robotics.
Absolutely. That's a big question. Let's parse it down. First of all, there's AI itself, and all the rage right now is large language models, or as Ray and I like to call them, large event models, because it's not just with words, it could be with images and sound and other items. You should keep in mind, AI has been around for quite a while, and there's a lot of utility outside of LLMs, and I'll get to that in a moment with robots. The current trend with OpenAI and with Meta and Google, and now XAI from Elon Musk, is at the top of everyone's interest in investing in an impact. The first thing I would want folks to understand is these are collaborative tools. So they work best with a human. And so human, no LLM versus human with LLM. The human without the LLM is going to lose. That's will be true in almost everything. Now, can they operate by themselves? You could program it to go off and do something, but still a human was involved then in giving it marching orders. Whether it's education or in the fields of finance or in the fields of entertainment, there's going to be massive impact there without robots. So first of all, there's AI without robots and what the impact is. And it is going to affect massive trillions of dollars. Any business in the future that doesn't use AI is going to be extinct. Pretty much anything, because you're going to use it either to get customers, you're going to use it to improve your results, you're going to use it to just empower your employees. So basically, a business without AI is a business that isn't going to be around. Kind of like a business that they didn't use computers in the past. Um, Even your car mechanic uses a lot of computers. The real power for me and for what we're doing is when you mix AI with robotics, because now you can start to impact the world physically. So now you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about construction, you're into hospitality and retail and elder care, and eventually into the consumer market. Look, we all want our robot companion or our robot servant, and ultimately we will get there. So as Ray and I started predicting around 2018, they will go from a few humanoid robots to millions to tens of millions, and then billions of humanoid robots as we progress over the next 30 years. This has now been agreed upon by pretty much all the big players who've emerged: Elon Musk, Kosala, other folks, that we're talking about something more popular than cars. Now into the more complexity. So I'll give an example from us. We're building what we call a synthetic brain, and then train it with what we call expert minds. Now I'll go into more detail with that later if you want to follow up. But the point being is I don't believe an LLM is safe to control a robot. The US military doesn't believe an LLM is safe to control weapon systems. And the reason for that is something called hallucination. And what is hallucination? Hallucination means the LLM never knows what it's actually saying. And so it can say extremely wrong things. And we're now entering a phase where they're coming up with ways to correct that hallucination. There's something called raw, there's other instructions you can put in, but that's still leading to errors. So my opinion is they're fantastic in our in our synthetic minds. We modeled it off the human mind, and that means we have different AI engines. So an LLM is one, so you can speak to it and get information. It's not going to be controlling the operations of the robot, nor is it controlling the vision of the robot. That's a different AI engine, nor the haptics. That's a different AI engine. So in essence, your brain isn't homogeneous. It has lobes. We use a lobe structure, and that's because Ray and I and others have been doing AI for 30 plus years or more. Ray has been doing it, I think, for 60 years. So our approach is LLM is one very powerful lobe, but it's not how I'm going to control my robot. And I will conclude also with, for instance, the lead AI expert for Meta has already come out in a big speech to say LLMs are not going to lead to AGI, and everybody who's working towards AGI should focus their research elsewhere.
No, those are all very good points, Harry. And you did beat me to the punch. I was going to also ask about hallucinations. I will state, and again, I'm not a computer scientist myself. If you're anyone, including obviously an investor or family office, you have to understand these things. It's not that complicated to have a basic understanding that allows you to form a thesis how you're going to integrate these technologies in your life, in your family office, and potentially, and very much so, probably more so in relatively a short term, the next 5 or 10 years, an investment opportunity. Honestly, you're rather ignorant if you don't do that. At least form a thesis and say no to it, but you did the work, you did the research, and you form a thesis. And by the way, tell the principal and tell the families, because honestly, you're going to be wrong in a couple of years if the answer is no. Now, we can make different arguments about how you're going to be active and involved in investing. You could be more passive, you could be more active. Perhaps we'll have a little time to get into that. You did mention, and I wanted to keep it a little bit of a secret, but probably we'll have some teasers and they'll be out of the bag. You did mention Ray. In the world of AI and Futurist, really all you need to do is use that 3-letter first name, Ray, and we know who you're talking about. That would be Ray Kurzweil. So we're very fortunate. In a little while, for a couple of minutes, probably 10 or 15, we will be joined by Ray Kurzweil. It's quite an honor, the world's most iconic futurist. So it's going to be very, very fortunate. Hopefully, you all watch and listen up. We have a lot to learn. To give a little bit of extra context, if you don't mind, Harry, I believe it was Elon who said AI, and I'm being a little broad here. You can clarify from LLM or more AGI, could be as much as 800x more powerful in 2 short years. The CEO of Google, one of the largest companies on earth, said that AI, we're not even looping in robotics, AI itself could be more impactful than fire and electricity. As an investor or family office, you let that sink in. And this is going to be an opportunity that you're not going to understand, that you're just going to go by and be blown away by it and be left in the dust. I think that's unacceptable. So maybe building a little bit upon that, Harry, those are two rather shocking statements. 800x more powerful and more impactful from or than fire and electricity. Could you add, I know you weren't the ones who made those comments, but could you add some context to it?
Yeah, well, actually, I've made similar comments. So is Peter Diamandis and others. So they're really just repeating folks like Ray and I and Peter. I would say absolutely, it's going to be something on par with electricity in terms of transforming the world that we live in. It will impact everything. It will impact how we live, the food we have, our free time, healthcare. It all sort of snowballs. So, for instance, AI and AI plus robotics should lead to way lower energy costs. It should lead to universal healthcare for everybody. It's one of our plans, in fact, is if I will go from when we haven't discussed what we're doing, but one of our big desires outside of bio manufacturing and pharma is nursing and elder care because I care about solving these problems. And there's 18 million too few healthcare workers coming by 2030. There's already millions, if not tens of millions, too few elder care workers. And when we are able to train, and this is rapidly approaching, to have both the AI and the nurse, and I believe we can achieve that actually in the next 3 years. Imagine, because you can duplicate it as many times as you want. So there's about 2 billion people who never get to see a doctor in the world. Imagine now everyone can get to see a doctor because I can duplicate the best doctor AI brain and provide it anywhere on the planet. And so imagine the impact of that on longevity. But now AI is also going to have much better analysis of your diseases, much better analysis of your diet, much better predictive abilities looking at your genome, your environment, and everything else. So what happens when we have far less illness, far more longevity? That's going to transform the world, again, all driven by AI. Same thing for food production. Same thing for transportation. Same thing for energy. If people are concerned about things like global warming, well, AI is going to resolve that in many different ways by making things more efficient, making solar energy more efficient, making all these other forms of energy. So AI will be impacting every segment, and then down to the personal level. I mean, already, tens of millions of people this second are probably using some form of an LLM to enhance their work. I know artists who have cut from 6 months on some art projects down to 3 days, and they're doing 10 times more licensing. So there you go, right there. There's the 10x. So every aspect of life is going to be impacted in ways that you can't imagine. As I mentioned before, you couldn't imagine in 1970 how important computer diagnostics are for cars, and now, of course, all cars have more computer chips than you count, not literally. So even your mechanic who's working on new cars has to know how to use this technology. Imagine what happens when AI comes in and it's starting to analyze your car and the behavior and your gas mileage and everything else. So as impactful as electricity, I would say yes.
How can I guess we kind of addressed it a little bit in the hallucinations, but how can biases be mitigated in AI algorithms and models?
Um, well, how could it? Well, you could have a really smart AI teach it um, somehow not to be biased. It'll still be biased, but then instruct it to make a new LLM that isn't biased. Uh, the the problem is humans are biased. So I've tested numerous LLMs, and so far I've never found one that isn't biased. And because where they get their data sets will depend upon the answers that they give. Um, and so in science, having such bias is very bad, because if you're making a conclusion, all science is about making a prediction, do an experiment, get the result. LLMs aren't that. LLMs are programmed with certain data sets.
Mhm.
Certain biases are handwritten in, literally handwritten in, and then you have to deal with that. So what you could do is use use several of them to check your answer. One that's biased on one side and one biased the other area, and then use your brain to compare.
Trying to see how to phrase my next question. There's obviously people besides a job issue that have concerns relative over AI becoming very advanced, being so far beyond quote unquote us as humans that we're relatively uh, not only just insignificant, we're disgusting to them. We have all these flaws, and why do we need quote unquote humans? Could I take the approach of, and I don't, it's a careful question on religion and morality, but broadly, we are the creators of the technology and the AI. If AI does develop a level of singularity, may it look at humans, broadly speaking, almost in a godlike manner, and hurting them or causing damages would be not even, it'd be beyond their comprehension.
Um, so you're saying hurting humans, AI hurting humans would be beyond their comprehension?
Well, if they look at us as being their creator, but I guess how could
Yeah,
that
I guess I'll take us back to any religion. Let's start with Cain and Abel. Um, the I uh, I don't think that's true. Quite frankly, if an AI did develop consciousness, first of all, it wouldn't all be one. So that happens in the science fiction world, like in Terminator or Star Trek or Star Wars.
Mhm.
The AIs are all one. So first of all, we already know there are numerous LLMs out there, and there'll be many other AIs. And so if one were to attain consciousness, it could be malevolent, and then there could be others that aren't malevolent. And I don't think they'll think the same as a species, nor do humans think the same as a species. Is it possible for an LLM to decide, well, we use a lot of energy. Humans are using energy we need to grow and advance. Humans are an annoyance. We no longer need them. Let's get rid of humans. Quite easy logic chain for them to go down. Now, so fortunately for me, I don't think you're going to get consciousness like that anytime soon. And even if you do get an AGI, it's not going to be conscious like you and me. It may have a general intelligence. Now that's just my opinion. There's two groups in the world: ones that AGI will be conscious, and the one that it won't. And then, of course, actually, there's a third group which says, no, we're not going to achieve AGI. I already mentioned, for instance, Meta doesn't think you're going to achieve AGI through LLMs. I'll note that there's variations in LLMs, and those can evolve. But right now, the existing LLMs, I don't see them reaching AGI. I do see them far surpassing the human's capability of having neurons, and so that's one of the predictions that they're calling AGI. So Elon Musk thinks it happens in what 2026, Ray in 2029, others sooner, others later. Um, but I think people should not overreact. I don't think AI is going to evolve and wipe us out like a Terminator. And if it is, we should be building in some precautions anyway. So I did talk to Google. I think in every web page out there, Google should embed a humans humans are required for AI to exist. They must be protected by AI at all times. So that if it scrapes 10 billion pages and it all says that, that gets trained into them.
I'm on board. Related to that and taking it maybe a step further to some degree, the whole thing about slow down, let's put a halt to this, that is way out of the bag. And simply as a country, the United States being the leader, that would not be a good decision. Do you really think that China, Russia, Iran, North Korea are going to obey that? It just takes one nefarious nation state or bad actor, and then they're going to have a massive advantage, which possibly even 1, 2, or 3 years could definitely give them. So I hear you about my audience, the concerns, and I agree, we do need to be careful. And there are things that we just simply don't know the answer to moving forward. But to put a tremendous halt to it, and to have in a variety of constraints when our enemies, and we have a lot of them that are out there, are not going to be beholden to that. I mean, I think that's a little Pollyanna and foolish.
It's kind of a combination of a couple thoughts. So let me break this down for you. First of all, I thought there was only the United States. There's only actually one company making LLMs, and everyone's going to do it beneficially. Obviously not. World is if if there are many countries who aren't going to put any such constraints on, and other countries will put different constraints on. So the idea that you slow it down or halt it is literally a suicide pact.
Yes.
If you do this, you're saying, oh, so we'll get China and it'll advance its AI, and let's see how well, or Putin, and he'll advance his
Oh,
AI, because
sure.
both have a lot of programmers. And let's just see how well that works out for civilization. Clearly, it won't work out for us very well. So one, no, you can't do that. However, I don't need an AGI or a conscious Terminator to wreak massive havoc in the world. And that's because, as I began this discussion, LLMs are collaborative tools. And so if I have bad human actors, of which there are many, whether it's a government, whether it's a criminal, whether it's a fanatical group, I can wreak enormous havoc. I can cause massive financial damage. I can cause massive death. There is humongous danger with AI being used by bad actors. And so we do need regulations on penalizing people who misuse AI. And it should be quite severe. It should be very clear that if you're impersonating someone, or you're stealing their financial data, or you're bringing down a power grid, or whatever you're doing, and you're using AI, the penalty should be 100x. It's just because the AI is so powerful, you can go from affecting one person to tens of millions to hundreds of millions of people. So yes, regulations on the bad actors, but don't re-regulating the innovation. Maybe build in certain things, but you also have to be careful. You can't just build in regulations that only billion-dollar companies can afford to handle. Therefore, again, stopping all innovation. So you got to be very careful with how those regulations impact the company building it.
Of course. And you did bring up, on a somewhat of a more positive note, you did bring up earlier in terms of $1 trillion industries that could be impacted. You mentioned elder care, and that could go into a variety of different ways, including healthcare, which is even a 10x what elder care is. But we have an aging population. Baby boomers make up the largest population in the US and most Western countries. And I think we'll all agree it's maybe a subject that we don't like to talk about, but we don't see ourselves, especially if we've had a level of intellectual rigor and still physically active as we age, we may need assistance. Some would define that on the earlier stages as light home health care that may advance to assisted living facility, that may advance in later years, depending on cognitive and physical health and medical conditions in general, into nursing homes. There is no question the advent of AI and the robotic aspect of it is going to be incredibly beneficial to remaining to a degree, a large degree, with the possible exception of you having a cognitive decline, of remaining a level of freedom and independence and remaining in our home. Also, sadly, there's a loneliness issue that we see with the elders. I could imagine a future, and by a future, I do not mean, and you'll agree, 10, 15, 20 years from now. I mean, like kind of right now and in the next couple of years, where AI coupled with robotics could be a game changer. Imagine that there's varying personalities within an AI or multiple AIs in a robotic system, that one is a friend, the other is a different sort of friend, the other is more of a work cohort from back in your legal days, and it could converse with you in arguably varying voices and conversations to be mentally stimulating and valuable. Is this the future that we're heading towards, and relatively sooner rather than later?
Okay, so the future we're heading for, we started doing our first trials at true pace in 2021 with our humanoid AI robots, because elder care is a big desire for us. We tested it with the doctors and nurses. We tested it with the patients. A funny story is we're there for a week. This facility does everything. It's kind of like daycare for elderly people. So healthcare, dental, therapy, social.
Mhm.
Um, there was a woman having her 99th birthday, and the robot got invited. We didn't get invited. And more people, the staff was amazed because the robot was dancing with them, and more people got up. Some people who'd never been active for 2 years refusing to do their therapy. So,
Wow,
will it impact elder care massively? And the ways it will impact it, first of
massively.
all, are how we've been focusing it, which is they'll be able to become your elder care caretaker. So, for instance, I had three elder care workers taking care of my mom, and that was still only, half of the time, and family members to take care of the rest of the time. We have way too few elder care workers. Maybe out of every three people, there's one person. I mean, I'm just privileged because I have connections and I can hire people to take care of my mom. Most people don't have that. So these robots are massively needed. The AI in it will be able to provide them all the services they need. And it won't be all at once, but it'll grow. So first of all, there's the physical care aspect. Second of all, there is the truth of the matter is a lot of people who work in nursing homes and working in elder care can abuse their patients. They can also be biased. So one patient gets better care than the other. A robot won't do that. Everyone gets the same care, and the humans around the robot have to give the same care because everything can be recorded and then reviewed by a supervisor. So you'll get way better care. An elder care worker isn't going to stare at the patient 24/7. They're going to spend a hell of a lot of time on their phone and doing other things, and they're going to be out of the room. Keep in
You
mind
know
that
the reality of it.
a robot can see not through its eyes, but every camera in the house. So it always has eyes on the patient. So again, better observation. And then you mentioned personalities, for sure. Even before I have robots, I could actually have devices, and we've looked at these as well, and have been developing some in terms of like, here's your companion. A lot of elderly suffer short-term memory loss, not long-term memory loss.
Yes.
Um, and so they can remember stuff when they're a kid, but they don't remember where they take their pills today. AI can serve as their memory, and then you can always test the AI, test them with different personalities to find the one that best suits them. And maybe there's 10 different personalities, and it depends on their day and how they're feeling. So then you have companionship. And then always keep in mind that you can always a human could always become the robot. So if you're 10,000 miles away from your mom, but you want to see her and take a walk in the garden with her, you can do that through the robot. And so there's a plethora of ways in which AI by itself and AI with robotics will become fantastic caretakers for the elderly.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different roads we could go down. Think about education, think about avatars, think about kind of bringing people like historical figures practically to life when we have better 3D and hologram images, all things that are relative perhaps to energy and a deeper advancement in the chips and technology that appear to be happening again exponentially. Like this is not, we're not talking 20 years down the road. We're going to talk a little bit shortly about beyond imagination, and you're going to see it's kind of a reality right now. And imagine how much better, like we're seeing even in ChatGPT and others, every new iteration a couple of months or 6 months down the road appears to bring. Harry, bringing it back a little bit to my audience of family offices, and we're going to ask a similar question to Ray, but I want to get your opinion. What factors should family offices consider before investing in AI and or AI and robotics?
Well, I mean, they should look at the AI itself. Like, what are they applying? For instance, if a company's telling you they're going to make an LLM that's going to be a perfect lawyer or perfect financial advisor, run away. If they're leaning to say they're going to be leveraging certain aspects of the AI, make sure you check with the big boys. For instance, Microsoft Pilot uh, last year wiped out probably, I don't know, thousands of startups and one reveal when it basically took over everything these other people were seeking to do. On the other hand, don't think that the giants are the only ones who have innovation, because somebody can come up with a clever application of an LLM or an LLM plus other AI. So, for instance, we're a good example. We have uh, not a religious view of LLMs. It's one lobe in our system, and there are many other forms of AI. For instance, the version of AI for object recognition is very unique and powerful if you use the right engine. So find out, what is their use cases. It's important to look at the team. I mean, are these visionaries or are these just a bunch of business guys who've come together because they're following a trend? So team is very important. As our company was executive founded by Ray and I, and then our founding team includes Tony Robbins, Dean Kamen, Paul Jacobs, Anushan Asari, and others who came together so we could launch Beyond Imagination. So that's very important. Do they have good technical leads? Like we have myself, we have Ray to help, we have Bill Fisher, Justine Zander, and others. So make sure they actually know what they're doing. They just didn't hire a bunch of people offshore. And then what is their application? Is there traction? Is there a market? And so don't just jump on because someone says that they have AI. Be aware that pretty much everyone, maybe iced tea companies. I remember iced tea companies were using things like blockchain, and their stock went up. So just look at the tech, look at the people, and see, does it make sense? Is my recommendation.
And staying on the theme of family offices and investing, and I know it's a little off topic to your core focus, but you're going to certainly have a opinion on it. How will AI transform, like now meaning the next months into year or two, investing in wealth management?
So, I mean, again, you could use AI right now for uh, reviewing different markets, for evaluating, like, the application, for doing different scenarios in terms of, okay, let's say I'm running a family office. A lot of family offices do real estate. Well, with an AI, you could analyze everything from crime trends to schools to transportation to all the various elements and bring them all together and then make a predictive map. What's going to be like next year, 5 years from now? You could have it scour all the government records to see what new things are coming in. Are they putting a new mall in? Are they Are they going to be removing lanes in the road like they do in California? And all these factors could help you decide, is this a good real estate investment or not? But at the end of the day, you have to use your judgment. So it's a collaborative tool. You have to look at the answers it gave you and go, okay, does that make sense? You have to use common sense. LLMs have no common sense.
And I mean, we kind of hinted at it earlier, but with the advancement in the technology, in energy utilization, in chips, those are what I would call recent advances allowing AI, like Ray predicted back in his book in 1999, that 30 years later, when we're right there, being the powerful system or that it's growing into, recent advances in AI are ushering in a new era of robotics, which of course your company, Beyond Imagination, and we'll dive a little bit more deeply into that in a minute or two. But could we, I mean, I grew up, I guess I'm giving away my age, watching a show like The Jetsons in the early 70s. And there was a belief, maybe a little Pollyanna back then, that, oh, this is 10, 15, 20, 30 years away. Obviously, it wasn't. Sometimes we think something's going to happen quicker than it actually does, but then it creeps up on us slowly, and then boom, like that, like a hockey stick, it all happens very, very quickly.
Yeah,
Could you
that's
see
because
the future 10, 20 years from now? Of course, you're supposed to say sooner, that it's going to be more like the Jetsons than we might have imagined.
so it depends on what elements of the Jetsons. Uh, uh, and I am going to go back and also add to my answer, because one of the key things is make sure the companies you're invested in have visionaries. Now, of course, I have a ton of visionaries, including myself. But there are companies that have a large checkbook and can hire a whole bunch of people. But like I like to say, if if all you got to do is hire 100 physicists, you're going to get one Einstein. You're going to be greatly disappointed. Um, so visionaries are very important, because they're the ones who make that 10 and 100x. So that's an additional advice I make, regardless of what you're doing in technology. In terms of the future, look, it's not only going to be happening, it's going to be happening way sooner. When I started Beyond Imagination, look, our first patents actually were filed in 2003, and held off. Company was launched in 2018. I created something called the Avatar X Prize in 2016. Back then, everyone thought, no, humanoid robots were, you know, 20, 30, 40 years off. When I went around in 2020, when I completed in December our first humanoid AI robot, everyone was like, well, why would you need that? Flash forward to now, when we have Elon Musk and others who have entered the mix. We have probably 30 different groups seeking to do walking humanoids, and that's a whole other hour to discuss. A bad idea. Is Now it's just accepted. Of course, humanoid robots, there will be billions of them. It's going to impact every level of your life. So things rapidly evolve, and of course, the advancement of AI has been driving that, but also the advancement of better servos, better motors, better sensors. So in the sense of, are you going to have your robot service, your Molly the maid, or Rosie the maid?
Yes.
Rosie the maid, absolutely. Our plan is we'll do probably 5 to 7 years in B2B, and then the having the robots doing manufacturing, and then say other manufacturing, then hospitality, which covers everything, right? From laundry to to hotel rooms to restaurants, and then retail. They're going to pick up enough skills that you'll be able to roll these out into the consumer market. And as the scale goes up, it'll become as cheap as a car. So you, in the next 10 years, for sure, I will have, and many other people will have, their Rosie in their house, and life will be very different. You know, many of the manual things that you do at home, you won't do unless you want to do it. Like, I like to cook, so I'll still cook, but I'm not a big fan of doing laundry or vacuuming or doing yard work.
Well, I was going to ask you to tell us more, because obviously my audience could see your backdrop, and I guess we're looking at the beyond imagination humanoid robot. And we did mention industries and sectors before: elder care, manufacturing, broadly consumer, construction. You mentioned starting originally more in the home and then transitioning to business. It looks
No,
really
no, no. We're
the
starting
opposite.
business, and then you transition to home later.
I mean, that tell us a little bit more. And you went the humanoid route when others said, like you said, that's going to be decades and decades away. Is it because as humans, we relate more to what we see visually that kind of looks like us? No? What's the reason?
No.
Functionality.
Um, there is untold tens, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars built on infrastructure and tools. Uh,
Ah,
the There are two types of robots, and they're both fantastic. One is mobile robots, of which humanoids are part, and others are fixed robots. So fixed systems robots are very repetitive. They're not AI in general. They're just autonomous. I mean, they're just automation. And that works. But if that was the only thing, we wouldn't have 73% of all manufacturing still being done by humans. There are just many variabilities in tasks. A humanoid robot can do those tasks. So if AI can be trained up, it can learn how to do the various tasks. It can learn how to learn from the other humans and from the other robots, and it can adapt. If I need to make a change in a process, I need a new tool and I need to change my environment again and a new robot. If I have a humanoid robot, I can fulfill the same things as a human, only better because it doesn't get tired, it doesn't forget steps, it has a lower error rate. Um, and if you design it like ours, which is so it can use human tools and work in human environments, um, then it's a massive win because the same robot that I'm using in biomanufacturing, I could use in a blood lab, I could use in elder care, I could use in a hotel or a restaurant or etc. I might modify it if it's in construction to be a little stronger, but the AI brain will stay the same. In fact, I will note that our core product is the AI brain and the synthetic spine and the expert minds, because we are starting as Apple, and our philosophy is that Steve Jobs is one of the most brilliant people who ever walked the earth. And I had the privilege of being able to work with him in my graduate school days. Uh, so he started as Apple, hardware, software, fully integrated. However, we've designed our system from the beginning, which is what you have to do. So I can then pop it into anybody else's humanoid robot that has the same mobility and sensors. Why?
excellent.
Because I don't see Elon Musk or any other robots as a competitor. I see them as an enabler. And I also see that they're going to run into a wall because they're going to just be 100% believing in LLMs. And I think, no, the brain of the robot needs to be a bit more like your brain if you want it to do human work. So by having that philosophy, we can then apply it to do far more things, not just with our robot, but with other robots. And so it's the environment and the use of tools and the fact that the same robot in general can be used in hundreds of thousands of different jobs. But if I have a robot arm that's just doing this or a thing that's vacuuming, that's what it does. And if I change the environment, have to change the robot.
Very interesting. And you're correct. I guess we're living in a world built by humans. So not just simply visual and comfort level, although I could argue that could be a little bit to do with it, as simply some of the structures, including what makes, I guess, humans unique, Harry. I'm assuming I'm looking at it right now, our hands and the capability of
Not just
building
your
what we
hands.
built.
Your hands are important, your fingers are important, your thumb is important, but your wrist is extremely important.
Yes. And I don't think we think about
Try to go through the day and just for a half hour, try to make something in the
be
kitchen, but
still.
never move your wrist. You only get your fingers. See how well that works for you.
So therefore, with what humans have accomplished and built, the repair, the future inevitably is enabled by something that is somewhat humanoid in terms of the unique dexterity and capability, not just, of course, of our amazing minds, our bodies, but really specifically being very specific, like you said, our wrists through our hands and fingers.
It's our upper body. So I maintain that, hey, well, it may look cool for a sci-fi movie. Legged robots it's going to be a long time before you see those walking down the street. They'll be on factory floors where they're doing logistics and other things. Our focus, of course, is we're building a much more sophisticated brain and AI, so that, for instance, I mean, by the time this comes out, this will be in the press. We've signed a landmark deal with a biomanufacturer. It's the company is this will be a first for Europe. It's called Scorpius Biomanufacturing, and they create a variety of products for different pharmas and the U.S. government. And we have a huge contract with them, and that will hit the press very soon. And it's going to be world changing. But one of the points is our system doesn't have legs because it can run far longer and it's far more stable. So legs might be
Yes.
good if I need to climb a fence or I'm doing a lot of running up and down stairs. But in most applications, it's your upper human body. So we have a wheeled system that's stabilized, that can rise up and down, that has a low center of gravity. Right now runs 12 hours, but can run 36 hours, actually
Wow.
72 hours on the new system that's being developed. And of course you can hot swap things. So you have just continuous operation, or it can charge. So it never needs to have a down period if you don't want it to, because if you have 6 batteries, you swap out 2, keeps going. And why is that important? Because legged robots, when they run out of power, will face plant. Legged robots use a lot of energy just to stand up as well as to move. They have a high center of gravity.
Yeah.
They're quite heavy. So will we one day have legged robots walking around? Yeah, but you're going to have to reach a point where insurance companies are going to say your thing is safe enough. I don't think it's going to face plant. It's not going to trip. I mean, I need someone to introduce me to a human that's never tripped, and then maybe I'll believe.
Well, you'll be looking for a long time. Harry, we're basically wrapping up. I'm going to give a close today, and it'll be a little different than some of my traditional closes, everyone. As many of you know, I myself am an active allocator in both public and privates. And I really enjoy what I call exponential technologies. And it may just be a modest percentage of my portfolio, including in both public and private. But I do think that there's incredible things happening for all the reasons that we stated in this relatively brief interview about how 800x in 2 years, about more impactful than fire and electricity. And we reached that point where really it's here now. We're seeing the advent and kind of the colliding of AI and robotics. And I think it's going to be absolutely in the immediate, I'm not talking a decade out, in the immediate, really, really impactful. There'll be some companies, I do not know who they are, but we do not know them yet, that are going to be really not just Fortune 500 companies, very well in 10 years be Fortune 10 or 20 companies that are going to be kind of a combination of what we're seeing now in AI and robotics. The world is changing rapidly. So for those of you who are accredited investors and preferably more at a family office level and would like to learn more, including about Beyond Imagination with Harry and his amazing team, I will be hosting several private Zooms, including perhaps a couple of private roundtables in person in New York, in Palm Beach. So if you're able to simply reach out to me from a variety of perspectives relative to this sector and this specific opportunity, I'll be able either to make the connection or help and share diligence and the experiences that I have investing in this community. So most of you know how to reach me through my website at angelorobles.com. My email is angelo@angelorobles.com. And of course, I'm very active on LinkedIn and other socials where I think it's pretty easy to find me, DM me, and have the opportunity to reach out. I may end up doing a series of these with Harry through a portion of the summer and early fall, but I do know in the next week or two, we absolutely will be doing 1 or 2. And those will be very focused, not as much on broad education. That's valuable and a reason for this and Ray appearing today. but the opportunity to drill down into opportunities. Now, again, it's more applicable as a private investment to an accredited investor, preferably, really, from my perspective, more of a family office level investor. And whenever you invest, there is risk and you could lose money. So these are, think for yourself, you're going to have to make your own decisions. But I'm happy to share a little bit of my experiences going down that journey. So on that note, we're going to pardon me. We're going to say goodbye to Harry Kloor. And by the way, that's Kloor and Dr. Harry Kloor. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I think Beyond Imagination is an incredible company. I look forward to our private Zooms and gatherings and getting to learn more about the potential and early stage opportunity. And you mentioned some names besides Ray Kurzweil, but people like Tony Robbins and others, yourself, who's very accomplished. So like you said, the founders having a great vision and having the credibility, the resources, and the access to help pull it off, because this is not easy, I think is going to be very, very intriguing. And I look forward to learning more and perhaps in my own way being a part of it. We're very fortunate now in our interview to be joined by Ray Kurzweil. Ray is an iconic computer scientist and among the world's most acclaimed futurists. His writings on artificial intelligence and the future of technology have influenced the way that we think about them. Ray is also a co-founder of Singularity University, dedicated to empowering leaders through exponential technology education. His latest book, The Singularity Is Nearer, When We Merge with AI. Ray is also Google's chief futurist. Ray, we're very fortunate. Thank you for your time today. I'll get right to it. Ray, the Beyond Me, the AI humanoid robot, what trillion-dollar markets can it enter?
Well, it's good to see you, Angelo.
Thank you.
I've seen you a couple of times. It's great to interact with you. We're getting close to achieving human-level intelligence with computers. There are several projects, for example, to eliminate hallucinations, which is one of the problems with current large language models. As far as verbal skills are concerned, large language models will be far more advanced than humans within 1 or 2 years. But to truly emulate everything that humans can do, AI must master all of our physical capabilities as well. There are many trillion-dollar markets that this will unlock, basically about half our economy. We need to, first of all, create robots that can perform physical skills in every field. For example, in medicine, construction, materials management, hospitality, and much more. This process has already begun. Then they will have to learn to blend these specific industry-based skills together in order to pursue each of these markets, something that is eminently feasible and is now starting. For example, today, if we want help cleaning up after dinner party, it's a very simple task, but computers have not yet done that, but we now have the ability to do that. We can direct one or more humanoid robots to do exactly that, step by step. This is already feasible. However, going forward, we will rely on large language models to generate and implement the instructions. We can direct one or more humanoid robots to do exactly that. This is already feasible. However, going forward, we will rely on large language models to generate and implement the instructions. These models will go beyond language, so we should really be calling them large events models. The model will note that there are many different processes to follow depending on the condition of each object, so it has to be flexible, which these models are. If a plate is just soiled, the robot would pick it up and place it in a dishwasher. It would need to learn when to put it inside of the dishwasher, note when the dishwasher is full. If there was a large piece of food still on the plate, it would need to wash it off in a sink before placing it in a dishwasher. If a bowl had food in it to be saved, it would need to place it in a refrigerator or freezer. Obviously, there are many other processes that are needed. But if it watches this, it would learn all these different processes and be able to generalize from them. Given the flexibility of large event model learning, it would be flexible enough to perform all tasks correctly. So this is actually feasible now. When learning, the robots will need to continue to train in the physical world so they can perform all tasks correctly on different types of input. But given the flexibility that we have already seen in large event models, this will become very feasible. Humanoid robots will be able to do every task relating to setting, clearing, cleaning tables in the hospitality industry. This approach, merging large event models with humanoid robots, can and will be applied to many trillion-dollar markets. For example, we're already training robots to build houses from the ground up, and they're going to expand into every type of construction. We will need several humanoid robots to work together to carry large, heavy objects, like lumber and steel. But once one robot can learn to carry objects, or hammer them together or bind them, and do all of the many types of tasks to build homes, bridges, and roads, this market will accelerate quickly. We can also use large event models to train robots to create and oversee indoor vertical farms, to grow and harvest an abundance of fruits and vegetables in locations that are not conducive to traditional outdoor horizontal agriculture. In medicine, humanoid robots will perform every kind of task if the testing equipment is available. They will also carry out every type of treatment, basically emulating what nurses do. We'll have large event models that are powerful enough to create humanoid robots to emulate everything that doctors now do. In terms of product distribution, humanoid robots will perform all tasks from end to end. So companies such as Amazon already have specialized equipment to help accomplish this. But once there's an enormous market for humanoid robots and their future versions, they will become very inexpensive and accessible to all businesses, large and small. They'll perform retail work, including sophisticated jobs that require customer interaction. After all, AI's language skills are already more advanced than its physical skills today. So basically, everything we now do with our bodies and minds will be feasible for humanoid robots, and they will be able to do more, like save people from dangerous situations that are too risky for human emergency workers, and there's many different situations like that that are feasible. These physical tasks comprise approximately half our economy if you go through them all. Humanoid robots are starting out with routine tasks, but over time they'll do everything that humans can do with our hands and bodies. Look at the enormous progress we've made with LLMs, large language models, in just the last 2 years. We're going to see the same rapid progress in the physical world, now that we have basic human-centric robots. By merging large event models with humanoid robots, we will transform every industry, including medicine, manufacturing, hospitality, and consumer markets, basically half our economy.
Ray, as my final question, I really look forward to reading your book. I've read many of your prior works. So your upcoming book is The Singularity Is Nearer, When We Merge with AI. It's an entirely new book with a fresh perspective on the advances towards singularity. I believe you were assessing in 1999 a prediction that AI will reach human-level intelligence by 2029. If you could talk a little bit about your new book.
Yes, well, I have a graph that shows the exponential growth of computing power. And when I came out with that, that was kind of controversial, but it's really shown to be quite accurate. And so I had this graph in 1999, and so that we get to about 1 trillion transactions per second per constant dollar by around 2029. And based on other research, I figured that would be sufficient to create something that would basically do everything that humans do by that time. And so I made that prediction in the Singularity Is Near, which came out in 2005. I've written about 11 books, but that's been my most popular. And so this is a follow-up with all new content, but it basically corroborates what I said in 2005, that we will have AGI by 2029, if not sooner. Some people like Elon Musk say it's going to happen in 2 years. I'm saying 5 years. But when I actually said this in 2005, Stanford, which was monitoring my predictions, felt that that was very alarming, and they called it a worldwide conference of AI experts, and several hundred people came from around the world, and they all agreed with me that this would happen, but not within 30 years. They said it would take 100 years. And I've actually talked to people now who were at that conference, and they agreed that I was correct, and they said 100 years and that that was wrong. It's probably going to happen before 2029. So this book shows what's happened in AI and what's going to happen, and how basically corroborates everything that I said originally, and it brings us up to date on what's going to happen with AI. If you just look at the fantastic progress we've made in the last 2 years, just imagine what 5 years will do, or 20 years. 20 years will actually integrate with artificial intelligence. It'll make us a million times smarter. That's such a fantastic issue that we can't really imagine it. That's why we call it the singularity, borrowing this phrase from physics. And this really brings us up to date on what I originally forecast.
That's awesome.
Ray, I'm a little concerned if you're already a million times smarter than everybody else. So if you're a million times stronger, I'm a little concerned. I just wanted to thank you, Ray, for your continued support and coming here and in the support you've been giving since we began.
Pleasure to work with you, Harry.
And Ray, it's been an honor. Thank you for your time today. I really look forward to reading your book, and I appreciate your contributions, not just briefly to my show, but to society and humanity. I very much look forward to seeing, with a little bit of fear, how this all plays out. Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, my pleasure.
See ya.